Um, Good afternoon, everyone. Apologies, I will be speaking English today. So I represent Zalora, which is one of the leading online fashion portals in Southeast Asia. And today I will talk a little bit about how we are using technology to drive our business and drive more relevancy to our consumers every day. So to give everyone some context, because I think a lot of audience here today have not heard of our company, we are based in Southeast Asia with presence in Singapore, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. And I think the business that we are in is very unique because I understand a lot of the audiences here today are from a single brand or representing a brand. We are a multi-brand online fashion platform. And we carry a wide range of international brands ranging from like the Mangos, the Adidas, the Nikes, the Tommy Hilfigers of the world, all the way to local brands. And what we ultimately want to achieve on the platform is we want to be the everything fashion store, which means consumers come to our website, they're able to find very personalized experience, almost like when you listen to music and you use like Spotify. I don't know if a lot of audiences use Spotify in Korea, but it's almost like we have everything, but then when you come to our website, it's a very personalized experience. And that's the kind of aim that our company is trying to achieve. And I will walk everyone through a little bit about how we are achieving that using various technologies from a practitioner's perspective. I think this was addressed from the previous speakers, is we have seen massive transformations in the retail world in the past 10 to 15 years, right? A lot of the brands going from selling inside department stores to opening up their own independent brands, independent stores, because they could tell their brand stories better. And then in the 2000s, it was very heavily dominated by desktop users from the internet. And then it was only until very recently, like the past maybe 3, 4, 5 years, that mobile became the dominant usage of retail. And because it is so transformative in terms of how suddenly like a lot of users migrated and start shopping using mobile, we had to redesign the whole retail experience around mobile. Because it's just very different from operating from like, let's say a desktop. It's also very different from operating like a offline channel. So here is why and how data is changing your fashion experience when you come to the website, right? So let's take a look and think a little bit back when we were all much younger and when we were going to a store. If you went to a physical store, even today, it's what I call a static model, because if you go to the windows or you see what the ghost mannequins are wearing inside the store, in fact, most of the products don't change much until every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, and then they will change at once. And the experience is you go into like a store like Levi's or Nike or Topshop, everyone sees the same stuff. And fast forward to what I call the e-commerce 1.0. E-commerce 1.0 is basically, we try to replicate something like the physical store, is we try to display stuff in the very front pages. Is that something that we think it can sell? But the upside is we can be much more dynamic in terms of how we select the products. So let's say a physical store, they will change the products in the windows every 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We can change these products every hour, or every like 3 hours, or every day. So it was a much more dynamic model, but it was much more faster. And that's what I call the e-commerce 1.0, which is a lot of e-commerces are in today, still sitting at this stage. But I think what we are seeing in the internet space is basically we are moving to something called the e-commerce 2.0, which is it's going to be much more personalized. And I will explain in the next few slides how we actually do it. And a lot of it will be based on what you've been viewing, what you have been clicking, what have you been purchasing, and such that when you come to the website, it's much more personalized. It's almost like listening to music. The more hip hop you listen to, the more hip hop playlists they're going to display to you, such that you're going to be much more engaged with the platform. And that's, I think, the future of how fashion retailers will actually be. So this is what we call the funnel in terms of how do we address customers in a very personalized way and continuously engage with them in various different channels. So you can see here, starting with performance marketing is marketing ads, right? Like 5-10 years ago when you were on TV watching Korean drama, everyone was seeing the same advertisements. Today, ads are dynamic, and it is largely, this is what we call retargeting. So for example, if I went to the website and saw something like a men's shirt, I'm probably going to be giving you a lot more men's shirts because I know you're a consumer that likes or is looking to buy men's shirts. Just for you, personalized recommendation, I mentioned that already. Push notification. If you've downloaded the phone, and if you download the app on the phone, this is actually very important for me to drive engagement. And why this is important is because in today's world, more and more people are using chat apps and just apps in general, right? Like, I think in Korea, the majority of people use KakaoTalk as their communication channel, and less people are using emails. So if you think about your business, if your business is only like a very email-driven, product, or your way of communicating with your customers are like using emails, you need to start thinking, because less and less people are using emails these days, and they're more using apps, they're more using chat apps, right? Other things that we do on the personalization is when you check out is we want you to buy more as a retailer. And I think all retailers want their consumers to buy more, especially for e-commerce, because the delivery cost for a product is the same. If you buy 2 shirts and 3 shirts, my delivery cost is largely the same. So I always want the consumers to buy more. But how do you do that is you really need to drive relevancy in the checkout. Like, for example, just think about when you're at a store. At the checkout counter, there's always these small products where when you're waiting in line, you just put into your basket and you buy more because they're products that you're impulsive and you want to buy it. This is the kind of thing and experience that we're also trying to replicate online, but make it much more personalized. I think here I will talk a little bit about how do we drive consumer conversions from viewing to actually purchasing. This is what I call the factor model. A simple website or web page like this has many factors, which I broke down here, which we decide what products we want to display to the consumers. And I'll walk through every one in terms of why these factors are important. Number one, it's not in the order of importance, but I'll just go from left to right so it's easy for everyone to follow. Click-through rate is essentially, let's say there's 1,000 pictures on the website. What pictures you pick to click is your click-through rate. And the more clicks you have, which means the more interesting the product is. If you have products where people don't click into it, it's not so relevant. And you can measure this, what we call the click-through rate. Conversion rate is once people click into the image, do they actually purchase it or not? And these two factors are actually highly important factors when we drive what we display to the consumers, because you don't want to display stuff that is nobody wants to click into it or nobody wants to buy. Margin is obviously one very important factor for retailers, because we want to sell products that are high margin to the consumer to continue to sustain our business. Because in retail business, margin is probably one of the most important factors that we always think about. Discount level, do you want to be displaying full price products or discounted products? Aging date, like, is this product new or very old? Because if a product is very old and it hasn't been selling much, there's obviously a reason why people are not buying it. And you don't want to display products that are 2 years or 3 years old in the first few pages. Just like when you're having a physical store, you always try to display the new products when people walk inside. And this is the kind of thing that we're trying to replicate by measuring how, when the products went online. Brand adjacency, this means like, you don't want to display like, a random brand next to Nike. You want to put Nike next to Adidas. So this is what I call brand adjacencies. When customers come into the website, it feels much more, like, it feels good, because you don't want to have too many different brands next to each other. You want to be almost like walking in a store, you see, Gucci next to Hermes, next to Chanel, right? You don't want to see like a random brand next to Gucci, right? Other things that we classify is what we call category, because like this is very important in the retargeting or checkout, because like if a person has put a dress into the basket, I probably know he or she is looking for more dresses. So when I do marketing, I can display more dresses to that person of the same color. And these are two factors that we also like, bucket. Other things are brands, price points, because like price is very important for online. And it's probably one of the most important factor. Hence, you don't want to display stuff that is too expensive, because I think products that are too expensive in Asia today is still very difficult to sell. Delivery speed, I think in some of the e-commerces, especially in Korea, people really care about fast delivery. And people really care about if we can get the products the next day. So I think the delivery speed also affects how we think about what products we want to display. The first 300 products. You come to our website, I want to display like 300 products. These are all the factors we think about when we think about what we want to display to the consumers, because time is one of the most scarce products for everyone today, and you want people to just see very relevant products all the time to keep people engaged. And similar to offline stores, right? You see offline stores like, there's different shelves, right? Different levels, right? And usually the most valuable shelves are the ones at your eye level. The ones that are social products, they're always at the very bottom, right? And this is almost the same as what we're trying to replicate in the online world. Is we have something called the ranking algorithm, which ranks all the factors from the previous page, and we give them a score. And this product here, at this point of time, is ranked number 1 based on all the factors that we calculated. And why? Because this is probably a new product, price point is good, margin is good, and people have been buying this from, other people have been buying it as well. So we know this product is a good, it can sell. So we rank every single, product on our website and give them a score and rank them. So when you come to the website, it's highly, it drives conversion rate much better in that way. New technology. This is what I call the visual search. And this is particularly important in like a multi-brand fashion e-commerce. And why is it important is because we have 150,000 SKUs products on the website at any point of time. If you're filtering it one by one, it's going to take you a lot of time to find your right products. And visual search is one of these technologies where you can take a picture of your shoe or your shirt, and we use the data analytics model to find search results that are relevant to you. So you don't actually have to filter one by one. And it's actually some of the new technologies that are being developed. This is not something we built in-house. There are actually a lot of third parties that do these kind of technologies, but we integrate into the platform because there's so much technology that you almost can't do it all by yourself. I think another very important journey in the e-commerce is there's more and more brands that are moving to this direction, what I call official store, flagship stores, concept stores online. And what it tries to do is it tries to give the brand story similar to when you go to an Adidas store offline. There's always these big banners and talking about the brand story. And there's also what are the hot products, recommended products for this particular brand, right? And I think this will be a lot of the main directions for especially the international brands where they invest a lot of the money on the branding. They have celebrities, This is something that I see as something a lot of the brands will move towards too, because these brands, the most important thing, other than sales they care about, is brand image. They want the brand to be really good, whether it's offline or online. Okay. Next, I think, since we're in Korea today, we'll talk a little bit about Korean fashion. And I think the suggestion or I would give everyone is think big and global, right? Because coming from outside Korea, I can tell you how big the Korean culture is, especially for Korean pop, Korean beauty, Korean fashion, right? It's almost like a cultural revolution in terms of what is happening with the Korean culture. And I think there is a huge demand for all these products outside Korea. But I think the problem is they're just really difficult to find. And I think a lot of the Korean brands or Korean retailers, they think how I can win the Korean market. But in fact, the global market is very, very big, and that's a huge growth potential for a lot of the brands that they have untapped potential into. Because if you think about the market size of just Southeast Asia, I just want to give some context, right? Indonesia has 260 million people. Philippines has 100 million people. And the whole Southeast Asia is 430 million people. That's almost 10 times the population of Korea. And I think what is really interesting is if you look at the online fashion penetration rate. Today, it's still the very beginning. And a lot of the markets, for example, Philippines, only 1% of the people buy online for fashion. Indonesia, 3.6%. And I think the statistics from Korea is, around 18% of people, 18% of the total retail sales actually happen online today. So if you think about the growth, there is actually huge growth, and there is a huge opportunity for brands to go into these markets and think internationally and think global. And I think this will be my last slide in terms of what do we do, right? Because brands always think, okay, there's an opportunity there. How do I enter that market? Because I've did attend a lot of trade shows in Korea before, and this is my advice, right? Is I think in the past, a lot of brands when they speak with buyers, right? They always think, I will only offer my products to you if you buy it on wholesale basis. So international buyers, they need to buy the products and then buy the products from Korea themselves and then sell the products somewhere else, right? So that's that's the wholesale model. But I think, the market has transformed a lot in the past, 3-4 years in terms of, especially with e-commerce. And I think the most important thing is something called cross-border trading or global trade, right? Like, if you hear what Jack Ma from Alibaba says, his whole business today is based on global trade. And it's not based on wholesale or anything. It's actually based on, global trade. So products are able to go from Hong Kong to Russia to, Latin America. And that will be the future model of retail and e-commerce, is global trade will dominate everything. And basically, there is a lot of good e-commerce or logistics infrastructure being set up globally by the biggest players now. And there is opportunity for everyone to set up a cross-border trading from Korea to around the globe. And this is a huge opportunity because, number one, if I told you today, I want your brand to be opened in Indonesia, maybe 10 years ago, it would be very complex because you would have to set up the warehouse, set up a business registration, have a team in Indonesia to handle all the logistics, customer service, payments. But today, you can do it all in Korea because of the global trading. And what is really interesting is actually governments give a lot of free tax duties for single packages entering these countries. Whereas if you import the products in bulk, you're actually going to be paying a lot of heavy duties, right? So there is a huge opportunity for everyone to tap into the global trade, movement for e-commerce. And I think this is my advice in terms of everyone, in terms of when you're thinking about your brand, think global, think international, because I think Korea is a great market, but there's also huge opportunities that I think there's huge demands for all of your products outside Korea, but people are just not getting the supply to sell to the consumers, right? And yeah, I think should be my last slide. Yep, that's my last slide. Thank you.